In the far reaches of the north, where the land meets the sea in jagged cliffs and dark waters, where the air is thick with salt and saga, and the wind carries whispers of gods long forgotten, there was once a man whose name would be remembered through centuries of blood and legend. His name was Ragnar Lothbrok. But before he was a legend, before kings feared him and bards sang his name, he was only a man with a plow in one hand, a sword in the other, and a mind filled with dreams far greater than his village could hold. This is his story. Let it carry you, gently, through storm and fire, through the quiet of northern nights, where only the gods bear witness to a mortal's rise. Lay your head down now, let your breath slow, and drift with me into the past. Long before his name crossed the sea, Ragnar lived quietly in the village of Kattegat. It was a cold land, nestled between forest and fjord, a place of hardy people and harder winters. The soil was thin, the skies often gray, but it was home, and for a time Ragnar was content with its rhythm. He was a farmer, not a poor one, nor a rich one. He rose with the sun, tilled the earth with calloused hands, and returned each evening to a longhouse warmed by fire and laughter. There, waiting for him, was Lagertha the shield maiden, fierce and proud, her braided hair shimmering like moonlight in the hearth's glow. She was no soft-spoken wife. She had once fought off a bear and wolves to protect her flock, a tale many claimed was legend, but Ragnar knew to be truth. Together, they raised 2 children, Bjorn, the bold, and Gyda, gentle and curious. Life was simple, but even in the stillness, Ragnar's mind stirred with questions. Each night, after the children slept and Lagertha rested her head on his chest, he would stare at the smoke trailing toward the ceiling and ask himself, why do we always sail east? Why do we raid the same lands again and again? What lies beyond the horizon, beyond the maps the skalds dare not draw? His heart beat not only for soil and harvest, but for the wind and the waves, for destiny whispered by the gods. The elders of Kattegat spoke with caution. To them, the seas westward were cursed, endless waters that swallowed ships whole. But Ragnar had heard tales, whispers from wanderers, hints of distant islands where gold lay unguarded in stone houses without walls. England, some called it. A soft land, others claimed. A foolish dream, the Jarl of Kattegat scoffed. But Ragnar did not listen to their fear. He listened to something older, something deeper. He began to plan, not with armies or maps, but with whispers, late-night talks with an old friend, a strange man named Floki. Floki was no ordinary shipbuilder. He walked with the gods in his mind, laughed at trees, and spoke to the sea as if it were a friend. Most feared him. Ragnar admired him. Build me a ship, Ragnar said. Not like the old ones. I need a boat that can dance with the waves, that can ride shallow rivers and deep seas alike. Floki grinned, eyes wild. A boat for the west? For the land beyond the fog? Yes, Ragnar, I will build you a dragon. And so he did. Ragnar's excitement could not be hidden. He gathered men, not many, only those willing to risk death for glory. But glory in Kattegat belonged to the Jarl. The Jarl, Haraldsson, was a proud man, seasoned by war, hardened by loss. He ruled Kattegat with a heavy hand and a sharper axe, and he did not welcome change. When Ragnar asked for permission to sail west, Haraldsson laughed. There is nothing west but death, he said. We raid east. We always have. We always will. But Ragnar pressed on. What if the gods have given us a path to greater treasures? What if there is more to our world than we've been told? The Jarl grew silent. His eyes, once filled with boredom, now flashed with suspicion. Or perhaps you seek to rise above your station. Perhaps you fancy yourself more than a farmer. Ragnar bowed low. I seek only to honor the gods, and to return richer than any man who has sailed before. The Jarl denied him again. So Ragnar went without permission. At dawn, under mist and secrecy, Ragnar and Floki launched the ship. She was a beauty, long and lean, carved with runes and dragon heads, her hull kissed by pine sap and prayer. She cut through water like a blade through silk. With her sailed Ragnar, Floki, and a handful of men who shared his vision, including Rollo, his brother, tall and strong, filled with doubts and fire. As they slipped beyond the fjord, the mist closed behind them like a curtain. The world of Kattegat faded. Only the sea remained. For days they rowed. The sky turned black. Storms screamed. Waves threatened to break them. Some wept. Some prayed. But Ragnar stood unmoved at the prow, his eyes locked westward. "We are not lost," he told them. "We are being guided." And when the storm broke, the sky cleared, and the sun pierced the clouds, they saw it. Land. It was like nothing they'd seen before. Green fields, gentle hills, and on a lonely rise, a stone building tall and strange. Bells rang. Smoke curled from its chimney. And within, men in robes chanted in a language foreign to Viking ears. "They do not carry weapons," Rollo whispered. "They are monks," Floki grinned. "They pray to a god who does not answer." The Vikings struck fast. There was no battle, only panic. The monks cried, fled, clutched relics as if they could stop death. But Ragnar was not cruel. He killed only when needed. He spared the old, took only what could be carried: gold, silver, strange books with painted letters, and one monk who spoke their tongue. As they left, flames rose behind them. Smoke curled into the morning sky. The sea welcomed them back like an old friend. They had done it. They had raided the west. When Ragnar returned, he brought with him wealth unlike anything Kattegat had seen. Crosses of gold, chalices encrusted with gems, coin from a kingdom that knew nothing of Viking wrath. The people cheered. The Jarl did not. His pride, already worn thin, snapped. He summoned Ragnar, feigned interest, and then accused him of treason. "You sailed without my blessing. You defied your Jarl." Ragnar stood tall. "I did what the gods commanded, and I returned with proof that our destiny lies westward." Haraldsson's eyes burned. "You will not rise, farmer. Not while I breathe." But the people had seen too much. They whispered in halls and at hearths. Ragnar's star was rising. The gods, it seemed, had chosen. Thus began the age of Ragnar Lothbrok. From farmer to raider, from outlaw to legend, the path ahead would be soaked in blood and bound by fate. But this was only the beginning. Sleep now, traveler, for when next we wake, the dragon ship shall sail again, and the saga shall continue. The fire burns low in the hearth. Outside, the night wind howls across the fjords, weaving through pine and stone, a lullaby sung by the north itself. The villagers sleep in their longhouses, wrapped in furs and silence. But not Ragnar, for in the dark of night, where others find rest, he finds only hunger. Not for food or gold, but for legacy. He has tasted something few in Kattegat ever dared dream of: victory beyond the horizon. And now he wants more. But power always comes at a cost. The gold from the west dazzled the people of Kattegat, but it burned in the eyes of Jarl Haraldsson. He had once been praised. Now villagers whispered Ragnar's name instead. At the feasts, it was not his sword they toasted, but the young farmer's daring raid. The Jarl felt it like a dagger under the skin. He watched, he listened, and then he struck. It began with an attack in the woods. Ragnar's scouts found the bodies, gutted, hung from trees, carved with strange runes. A warning, a threat, a message written in blood. Then came the visit from the Jarl's men. They arrived at Ragnar's farm in silence. 5 of them, armed, cold-eyed. "You are summoned," they said. "No reason, no crime." Lagertha stood in the doorway, sword in hand. "If you want him," she said, "you'll face both of us." Ragnar raised a hand to calm her. "No, love, this is not our war, not yet." And so he went alone. The Jarl greeted him with false warmth. "You are brave, Ragnar," he said, "but bravery can turn into rebellion if left unchecked." Ragnar smiled. "I do not seek your seat, Jarl, only the sea." But Haraldsson knew better, and he made his move. 2 nights later, Ragnar was arrested, accused of treason. of disobeying the Jarl's decree, of inciting rebellion. He stood before the people in the center of Kattegat, beaten but unbowed. "Let the gods decide," Ragnar said, and so it was done. Trial by combat. The Jarl's champion was a beast of a man, tall, scarred, forged by battle. The crowd circled. The drums began. Ragnar fought like a man possessed. Every strike of his sword was a prayer to Odin. Every dodge a whisper to Loki. Every breath a promise to Valhalla. And when the dust settled, the champion fell. The people roared. The Jarl turned pale. Victory had a price. Ragnar's defiance could not be ignored, not by the old order. That night, as he returned to his farm, the world seemed too quiet. Even the owls did not cry. Lagertha waited at the door. She held their son, Bjorn, close. "Something is wrong," she whispered. Before Ragnar could speak, the firelight caught movement in the trees. They came without warning, men in dark cloaks, blades in hand. The house burned quickly. The barns, the fields. Ragnar fought through smoke and blood, dragging his family into the woods, heart pounding like a war drum. He lost everything that night, but not his family, and not his purpose. With no land, no title, and no allies, Ragnar became a shadow in the forests. But shadows can grow powerful. He gathered those who believed in him, warriors, farmers, even merchants hungry for new lands and riches. Together, they built something greater than a rebellion. They built a cause. The old order feared him now. The people whispered not just his name, but his vision. He was not just a raider. He was becoming a leader. And the gods were watching. In the farthest edge of Kattegat, beyond the hills and into the mists, lived a man with no eyes, the seer. It was said he could see the threads of fate, woven by the Norns, hidden from all but the gods. Ragnar sought him in silence. He came barefoot, without weapons, offering only blood from his palm and the name of his father. The seer spoke in riddles, his voice dry as leaves. "You will rise like fire, and fall like ash. Your sons will surpass you, feared by kings, kissed by gods. But first, you must lose that which anchors you." Ragnar left in silence. His heart was heavy, his path clear, his destiny unkind. The raid west had stirred something in Ragnar, a hunger not just for land, but for understanding, for knowledge, for more than Kattegat could give. He spoke often of leaving again. Lagertha did not share the same desire. "Our children need a home," she said. "You chase dreams, Ragnar, but I need roots." They argued, not in rage, but in heartbreak. She was his shield, his fire, his equal. But the paths the gods carved were not always shared. One morning, she kissed him goodbye without a word and left with Bjorn. Ragnar stood on the hill long after they vanished. And when the tears dried, only steel remained in his gaze. Her name was Aslog, daughter of Sigurd the Dragon Slayer and Brynhild the Valkyrie, or so she claimed. She came not in a boat, but in a vision, tall, strange, with eyes that seemed to know things no mortal should. Ragnar met her on a path, barefoot and veiled, bearing riddles and prophecy. "You have lost love," she said, "but not lineage." She bore him sons, men who would carve their own legends into stone. Ivar, Sigurd, Vitsirk. Each child born under omen and storm, each destined to shake the world. The people could not be held back. They had seen the raids, heard the tales, watched the Jarl wither in fear. The time came like thunder. Ragnar marched into Kattegat not with war, but with truth. He challenged the Jarl not for revenge, but for the future. The old man died alone, his guards deserting him one by one. The village lit torches that night not in mourning, but in celebration. Ragnar stood atop the great hall, looking out over the land. He had no crown, no throne, only the loyalty of his people and the eyes of the gods upon him. Thus fell the last obstacle. Thus rose the man who would one day burn kingdoms and shake the very roots of the earth. But his greatest triumphs and darkest sins still lay ahead. Sleep now, for when we return, Ragnar will sail again, and destiny will come calling on blood-soaked shores. Sleep does not come easily to kings, for when a man holds power, he also holds the weight of prophecy, of sacrifice, of every soul that marches in his name. And Ragnar Lothbrok, though crowned not by metal, but by legend, bore the weight of a kingdom that had not yet found its borders. Kattegat now belonged to him, but the sea still called. There was no feast for Ragnar's coronation, no crown laid on his brow, no chance of "Hail King Ragnar" echoed in the great hall. Instead, there was silence, the kind that follows thunder. A silence filled with awe, with fear, with possibility. Ragnar sat at the long table, alone at first, until one by one the people came. Farmers, warriors, traders, even those who once cursed his name. He made no promises. He offered no gold. Only this: "We sail west again." And they followed. The next raid was different. More than a dozen ships carved through the waves. Longships bearing the dragon prows of Kattegat. Ragnar stood at the helm, his sons by his side, his eyes locked on the horizon. Their target, Northumbria, a kingdom ruled by a man who knew nothing of Vikings until it was too late. King El. He watched, stunned, as fire fell from the sky, the Vikings descending like shadows from legend. Monasteries fell, villages burned. But Ragnar, ever cunning, took not only treasure, he took hostages. And from those hostages, he learned the lay of the land, the politics of English kings, the cracks between thrones. He saw that fear was more powerful than fire, and he would wield it like a blade. Not all kings are fools. El would not sit idle. He called for alliances, for mercenaries, for vengeance. He captured Viking scouts, hung them from the city walls. And when he finally caught Ragnar's youngest raider, a boy of 16, he sent the boy's severed hand back across the sea in a box of ash. Ragnar responded not with fury, but with a whisper. "I will not return your cruelty," he said. "I will return your fear." That winter, the Vikings vanished into the forests near Northumbria. At night, El's men heard flutes in the dark, then wolves, then silence. When spring came, the Viking army was at his gates. Ragnar offered one chance: gold or fire. El chose pride, and the fire came. As the flames consumed Northumbria's outer walls, Ragnar stood among them, silent, unsmiling. His youngest son, Ivar, looked on, his legs too weak to stand, but his eyes sharp as daggers. "You will be greater than me," Ragnar whispered to him, "because you will have no mercy." The seer's words echoed. "Your sons will surpass you," and already he saw it. In Ivar's hunger, in Bjorn's strength, in Ub's curiosity, in Hvitserk's fire, each would carve a saga of their own. But Ragnar had one more to finish. When he returned, the people greeted him not with cheers, but with awe. He brought no slaves, only scrolls, books, artifacts, things the Vikings did not understand yet. "We must learn," Ragnar said. "We must become more than raiders." But not all agreed. Rollo, his brother, grew distant, hungry for his own place in the sagas. "We are Vikings," Rollo said. "We take, we do not learn." The rift deepened, and in Ragnar's heart, a shadow began to form, the knowing that even brothers may part like waves at sea. Even the gods do not protect the children of kings. One winter, a sickness swept through Kattegat, came with the wind, a fever, a breath-stealer, and it took Gyda, Ragnar's daughter. She died in Lagertha's arms. Ragnar buried her by the sea, where the tide could sing her to sleep. He did not speak for days. When he did, he said only, "She was too good for this world. The gods wanted her back." And from that moment on, something inside him faded. Years passed. Ragnar aged, not in body, but in spirit. He no longer laughed at feasts, no longer raced his sons through the trees. He sat by the water, staring west, always west, as if some answer still waited beyond the waves. One morning he left, in a single boat with only a few men and no destination. The people whispered, "Where has our king gone?" No one knew, but legends say he went to seek the gods, and what he found would shake the world. In England, the tides had turned. El, now wiser, crueler, captured Ragnar after a failed scouting mission. He was brought in chains before the king who once trembled at his name. "You raided my lands," El said. "You killed my people." Ragnar smiled, thin and tired. "And yet, here you are, still afraid of me." The king, enraged, ordered the punishment of legend, the snake pit. They threw Ragnar into a deep pit carved in the rock, 1,000 vipers slithering in the dark. He fell silently, and as the snake struck, he did not scream. He began to speak, not to the king, not to the people, but to the gods. How the little pigs will grunt when they hear how the old boar suffered. "Odin, take me home. I have done enough. My death is not the end, but the beginning of the storm." And then, silence. Ragnar Lothbrok was gone, but in his place rose a legend. When word reached his sons, the earth trembled. Bjorn, now a warlord. Ivar, cold and brilliant. Sigurd, Hvitserk. They gathered the great heathen army, the largest Viking force the world had ever seen. Not for gold, not for land, but for vengeance. The sons of Ragnar would cross the sea, and England would burn. But that is a tale for another night. And so ends the first saga of a farmer who became a raider who became a king who became a legend. Sleep now, traveler of time. The sea still calls, and in dreams, Ragnar sails still.